All right, so this is where we're at. I brought it into the other room because it's dusty, right? I have my router with a, I think that's a 1/4 inch radius, round over bit on it. I have a Milwaukee orbital sander, battery operated, and then I still have my go-to, whenever I'm near power, I still like these for sanders rather than having the weight and everything of the bulk of the battery. So anyhow, I'm going to see how it goes with the different sanders, and I'll cover the router thing in a bit, but I typically sand before I router round overs, because otherwise if you do, or I'll do one and then I'll go back and do it again, but otherwise what happens is if you do a lot of sanding, you're basically going to take away the round over that you just put on. So that's a personal choice, I guess. So let's just see where we get started. And again, I want this to remain rustic. So I intentionally have some saw kerf here. Now this is saw kerf from my 18-inch jet bandsaw that has a 1.25 inch TPI blade on it with a pretty decent rake. So it leaves that kind of kerf, right? And the same thing here. Again, I'm into rustic, just my style. And if you go back and look at some of the videos I did, I took some of the kerf off and left a little bit. And this will show up later. It doesn't show up that much right now, but it'll show up when we varnish. You don't even have to stain to get that. So, but this is a good example because it's going to show how different textures turn out. They're going to show after the varnishing. This will be kind of a fun one. It's really smooth right here, but you know, I intentionally did not dig in too deep with the jointer there. So because there was a little bit of a hollow spot there and here. So, and of course I've got the really rustic stuff up here, the live edge, and there's some cool stuff going on there. There's a little bit of checking, which is all to me good. There's also this black here, which is, this is part of the original saw kerf from the Sawyer's round blade. And then of course I left a little bit there, and we still have this end here. We're not worried about that right now. And again, this kind of stuff, again, this is because it was a prototype. I was just using up some oak I had around. I intentionally did not round over these. Now, that said, if you're going to do one of these and it's going to be a railing and you don't want to be too rustic, you would definitely want to round over these edges here before you put them in, because there's no way that the router is going to get all the way in there. It can get part of the way, but it's no longer going to get all the way because it's going to start hitting that edge there. So we'll just get started on the sanding and see how this goes. So this really isn't a video or a tutorial about, you know, dealing just with rustic. This is about more about the micro beam, right? The I-beam thing. But since I'm on it, like for here you have a raw edge. Now that's, it really got a sharp edge on it, and you're never going to be able to get a round over in there because it's going to basically, the bearing is not going to come down onto, it's not going to bear on where you need it to. So that is going to have to always be hand sanded, sanded with a sander to get that edge off of there. Otherwise, it's actually not safe. And people can put themselves on an edge like that. So that's that. Again, this is the stuff I just love doing. As you can see now, that sander took off some of the black, but not all. And then so I'm just starting to get that two-tone effect here. I just love that. And then you get into stuff like this. The lighting might be a little awkward here, but where you get in here, well, this little bit isn't going to hurt anything because we're going to get varnish in there earlier. The very first coat of varnish that I put on will typically be a pretty heavy coat, so it works its way into those things. Okay, so I go by surface, right? I got this surface, I flipped it. I got this surface, Then I did this flat surface, but not the edges yet, but I did all those flat surfaces, went over, did the same thing, just kind of mental note in it. And again, I want to keep rusticity. So I only got rid of the big hair, the hairy stuff. And then again, there will be a coat of varnish that basically kind of freezes some of that in place. And then we'll sand again, and then we varnish again, which really makes it fun. And what it does is it takes that roughness to a point where you could rub a dust rag on it and it won't, you know, grab the dust rag, the lint or anything. It's not that rough. It just looks rough, but it's actually not. So right now what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to get in here. This is one of those areas where I should have done this earlier. So when I make my list of what went right and what went wrong, I'm probably going to say, hey, at least clean up the inside edges there just a little bit more, because it's going to be a little tougher to get this in there right now, right? That's why this one might come in handier, more handy, whatever. Otherwise, we'll see. Okay, you can see that I was actually able to get in there, but just, and so if we're doing something like this with where the spacing is, these are actually turned out to be like 6 1/4. And again, it's just making it with that, right? Again, intentionally not digging into this dark any more than I already did. Otherwise, pretty soon it'll be gone, and I want to retain that. I also did do a slight edge on here. I decided I'm not going to do a round over with the router because I can't get a consistent one. And so I'm going to, well, maybe I will. Let's just do that now. I'll do the round over now because we've done enough sanding for a little bit. Could use a micro or a mini round over on here as well. Yeah, I like this, especially if it's a railing. Now keep in mind that we're not going to be able to do a round over on that because the what do you call it? The bearing won't go on there. So the only place it's going to touch is like right in here. You can try it, you know, but it's not going to work, right? So, but you also have an edge in here, and you're not going to be able to get at it like that, but you can if you go the other direction with it. So I'm going the other direction. I'm tucking it in there, keeping my fingers out of there. Spinning it. So I'm really getting to like this. Now, I did not do these top surfaces yet. I touched one, I think, a little bit. I did do the other side a little bit. Yep, I did. Okay, so, but this one's still not done yet. And I did want to point out the, you know, again, I love those R&R clamps, but I should have put a spacer in there. That's my fault. It's not theirs. But you can see what it's doing. It really makes an indentation in there in that surface, and especially, you know, if you have really fine stuff, you don't want to do it. But then also this roughs on that roughness, that grain that's sticking up is obviously like, it's like a little mountains, right? And so when you push down on it with that clamp, it's going to push down there, and that's what's making that little indent. I have a little shiny spot here, a little red there. So I'm going to have to sand that a little more than I'd like to, but I could have prevented that. And this is one of those things where I'm going to make a note of what went right, what went wrong, which is to put the wood spacer or something in there that basically protects the wood. Well worth the time. Putting new paper on. I see just a smidgen of Gorilla Glue in there yet. Can you see that in there, right there? So this is all that it takes. That was it. About 3, oops, I don't know if the camera caught it. Sorry about that. But that's all it took. And then I'm just going to double check these other ones as well. See the tiny little spot of thickness right there? Oh, that's still Gorilla, all right? And then right here where that center part was raised up and then it didn't meet this, I could sand, I have to sand a lot to get that down. Again, that was the mistake I made, that I allowed those things to float up a little bit, and I shouldn't have. But because there's a little crevice there, you can get that hide scraper in there and it'll pull it right out. And then I'm gonna flip it and do all the other sections as well. Okay, so as far as sanding goes, this is as far as I'm going to take it. A couple of things to keep in mind. Again, I didn't want to lose rusticity. I wanted to have just enough. Number 2 is this is your last chance to get any glue out of there, because once you varnish it, that will hold the glue in. The other thing is, you know, again, I have a little higher spot right in here where these are. I've already admitted to my mistake. Like right here, it's nice and flush, but it's going to get worse once I put varnish on there, because it's going to be even harder to sand. So if this were for a customer, for instance, then I would sand that down for sure. But you can see the benefit of doing it the right way, which is right here, it's nice and smooth, but that grain actually kind of goes across. It's kind of cool. There's some other options to this, which would have been, and I'll have to think about that on another prototype, but is to actually put those pieces in there with, like, you know, Gorilla Glue or something, right? Put these in and then remove these, but leave these in, let them dry. Then I could run it through a planer or a joiner and you'd have an absolute baby's bottom on this. That would be a really good way to do it. The concern I had was, all right, am I going to be able to still keep these nice and tight? Is glue going to come out there? So in retrospect, I think that's probably the way I would have and should have done it. Was, again, repeat. I would put these in, cut these and put them in so they just fit, put some glue in there, then gently remove them, allowing those to do what they do, probably put clamps on them, still have Gorilla Glue here and here. Try to avoid Gorilla Glue on the 2 ends, because then it doesn't go into the cavity, right? And then after it's dried and cured, then run it through the joiner or the planer, and then hopefully, of course you have to mark each one of these, but then those would slide right into that spot. I'm going to put a rounder over in there, but I don't want that sharp edge from a finger standpoint, so I'm going to do all of these. Okay, so if we take a really close look, there's a little bit of Gorilla Glue in there. And you can see it filled in most of the areas, but like here, it didn't. It filled in a lot of it here. And so there's still almost always going to be a little bit of fill, which is a non-issue. Actually, Minnwax, it's harder to find now, but Minnwax makes a great product for that. I buy the small tubes rather than the large tubes, because the shelf life is so short on it once you open it, but that fills it in quite nicely. I hope I have some of that around. But what I'm going to do is just see if the sander fits in there, which it does. I think the battery just died on me. How about that? The battery just died. But I'll just try this one. Okay, so that's going to work just fine. Okay, so again, this is a prototype, but I still don't mind just, you know, doing it right, as long as it's not going to take a lot of extra time, because I'm not really using this thing other than for demonstration purposes. But there is still a little bit in here where the Gorilla Glue didn't fill it, and then I couldn't get at it very well with the sander. There's a couple of different ways to do that. Fix it the easiest way, I've been using this stuff for 100 years, and I buy the little tubes because the shelf life on them isn't very long once you open them. I'll see if I can get a little bit. See, you can see this one was already opened and it's starting to dry out a little bit, but hopefully I can get enough out of here to do this and not have to open another one. But I'll just kind of get as close as I can on this. And I just put it on my fingers and rub it in both directions. And that's really it. I'm going to do that on all of those areas. All right, so I was able to get enough out of that tube where I didn't have to pop into a new one, and they're not that easy to find anymore. Home Depot used to carry them, and I don't see them there. I'm not sure why. Anyhow, it's great stuff. You can find it. I'm sure you can get it online. But now, don't get it too wet. But I'm just getting a rag wet because I want to keep on going on this, right? So all I'm going to do is just very lightly wipe away the residue. So it actually kind of helps spread it in there. And then if I wanted to, I'd go back and do it again, like 10 minutes from now. But I think I'm going to be comfortable with this. And I might just briefly hit it with the sander, but I don't want too much of that stuff remaining because I want it to basically just kind of blend itself in. Again, don't get it too wet, otherwise you're just going to basically pull it right back out. And you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but I got a little too much in the corner there. So a wet finger, or you can use your hide, but I'm just taking the tip of the rag and getting in there a little bit, and that gets the thickness out. Again, if this was for a client, I would be doing this nicer. Let's put it that way. And but I want to keep on going with these prototypes, and so I'm not going to be able to do that if I get too meticulous on the cleanup. So we're just about ready to varnish.